Good evening. I'd like to call to order council meeting of February 24th, 2025. Everyone that can, please rise for the playing of the national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Carton brasse porter le pays, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, before we approve the agenda, I would like to amend the order to consider item 19.1 once council rises from closed session. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda, amended agenda? Councillor Howe, Councillor Davoli. Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor Davoli. Resolve the agenda for the February 24th, 2025 council meeting be approved as amended. All in favor? And that's carried. Moving on to delegations, Harley Valentine is here this evening to speak to the Balsam Christmas Market. Harley, please come to the podium. Good evening.
Check. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Lovely to be back here in front of council, the community who's there joining virtually, and staff. I believe we were here, I'm looking to Marilyn for a cue, back in October of last year. We put forward vision for what we called the Balsam Lane Christmas Market. At that time, we were looking for opportunities to activate community downtown spaces. Community downtown spaces, which were identified as part of the larger downtown Grimsby charrette, and put forward a gesture that we saw as community development. Community development is close to land development, and I take great pleasure in wearing both hats and taking great pride in executing in both fields. And I'm pleased to share the updates of what the Christmas Market Balsam Lane program had to offer. Next slide. I saw it there, and then it disappeared. I will also make special note that it was an interesting exercise in marketing and bringing awareness to Balsam Lane. Balsam Lane is a little known laneway that we all utilize maybe on a weekly, daily basis, but not actually take pleasure in either the beauty of its name or in of its space. And I think this event was an awesome opportunity to explore both of those. So we had design drivers. These are the same design drivers that we put forward back in last of October. We wanted to define a unique place. I think we accomplished that mission. We wanted to connect with the community. I think we did that in some amazing ways, which we're going to share more on. We wanted to enhance business opportunities for artisans and entrepreneurs, but most importantly for young people. We had an incredible amount of youth out, both performing, both participating in makers markets, and artists sharing their space. We also wanted to create an engaging design district destination. One of the ways we've instituted this and begun the ball rolling on what we call the Downtown Grimsby Creative District is with a number of murals and colorful gestures of color and public realm improvements. Next slide. It's okay. Is that the logical next slide? So the first market that we put forward, of course, was the Balsam Lane Christmas Market. It was an opportunity to engage with our community partners, the Grimsby Benevolent Fund, Downtown Makers. I believe we had the high school engaged, a number of volunteers come out for that, and just overall, again, activate an unknown space into what could be a town square type festival. Just going to roll forward and not get bogged down in some of the community partners text here, next slide, and just really go to what the event was about, which was coming together as a community, exchanging goods, celebrating performance, talent, and participating in the season, the spirit of the season. I think these photos, what they don't show here, if we just go back about how cold it was that day, we picked one of the coldest days to kick off the season, but yet we found an incredible amount of attendance. Next slide. We were able to capture data as part of this market, which was a commitment that we made, and it was great to work with staff to be able to have a bit of a feedback loop on that as we roll events forward and continue these ambitions. So, one of my favorites is that return to the location for future events, 99%. That's a pretty good number. And we sold 100% of the Christmas trees. So I think on those two data points alone, it was an overwhelming success. But we also learned a lot from a programming and logistics standpoint. We found that we were able to take down, I think, 20 plus parking spaces for this event, which was a one-day event between the hours of 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. without any major disruption to downtown traffic. We also just anecdotally got a lot of positive response from the downtown merchants about guests who came to the event benefiting from the proximity to those local businesses and shopping and eating and just partaking in the culture and spirit of what downtown Grimsby is. I often say downtown Grimsby needs to play its strengths as it goes forward, and one of its major strengths is events. I also, other than being a land developer, a community developer, I also wear the hat of the Downtown Grimsby Reconstruction Committee, which I share with Brendan from TownWorks. And, we were on a conference call this morning, and one of my big messages to that group was, we really need to frame the reconstruction of downtown Grimsby as a positive. It's something that's very exciting. It's going to usher in a new, improved downtown Grimsby, improved public realm space, and it's actually very exciting to be a part of it. So looking past the disruption, there is this horizon on the other side with a great amount of promise. Next slide. We were able to have a photographer come out, and she did a fabulous job of catching some of the spirit. Again, not demonstrating how cold it was, because everyone was very overcome with the spirit and obviously the activation of the space. Next slide. I'm hoping there's a bit of a wider slide here. We're going to go over some highlights here. Again, I think it just comes down to the execution of the event. I have a lot to thank Marilyn, who's with me, who works on the community engagement side, our team of volunteers, our number of stakeholders. We really brought a dream team of partners out who have a track record of delivering and delivered here on this day in a fabulous way. Next slide. And, we had some great moments that will live on. The exciting thing is, in this image, of course, is you get a sense of what that mural is, a bit of that life around a creative district that's emerging, community coming together with a variety of stakeholders, and we hope to continue to build on the spirit as we go forward. Next slide. So key observations, there was a lot of enthusiasm for people to be downtown. I don't think people are looking for more reasons to come downtown. Unfortunately, shopping is not necessarily the top reason that brings out young families or even tourists to downtown Grimsby. So we need to do a better job of that, of programming events. We know that this was part of that. The one thing we also learned about doing an outdoor event, weather is variable. We benefited from having indoor space within the Coach House at 13 Mountain Street, which acted as a bit of refuge. And I know as part of our visioning of downtown Grimsby that there would be a community space tied to this parking lot so that this type of tradition could continue on. It could be as simple as providing washrooms or a place to warm up, or also just specific indoor programming in community space downtown Grimsby. But again, just reinforcing the attraction and the opportunity to celebrate the heritage and the commerce and the connection of community in downtown Grimsby. Next slide. Is that it? No more? I wanted to call out some of the branding that we put forward for Balsam Lane Christmas Market just to try to build on that identity. It's something that I'm working with the GDBIA on and that we look forward to continue to reinforce as we unroll events this year. And then I think just in closing, Grimsby again, it's very exciting to be an active member of the community at this point. Historically, people have come to Grimsby in different ways. My great-grandmother came here on a boat to play baseball as part of the waterfront amphitheater that was built in the 1920s. Following people coming here by boat, they came by the service road to attend, also day-type leisurely activities through the motels that existed along the Grimsby beach. And then the QEW, as most of our history has been painted by, but soon to be the GO train. And how that GO train connects to downtown Grimsby is very important. It's something that we're thinking very deeply on, and how to make sure that last mile connection is not lost. And I urge this council to also make considerations as they go forward with future planning, how we can make sure that downtown Grimsby does not miss the boat on the benefits of having a GO train here in town. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harley. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Korstanji, then Councillor Frank.
Thank you, through Chair. Thank you. I had the pleasure of attending the Christmas market, and I can say that there were a lot of community members down there, and there were multiple events going on, which was wonderful in town because you could go between events and stuff like that. I did really notice how much business it drove into some of the businesses in very close proximity, because I attended some of them and they were just bustling with customers, and it was just a wonderful community event. So thank you for bringing that to town, and I'm sure that everybody attended appreciated, and I thought it was very successful.
Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I guess that pretty much says what I was going to say. I did attend the event. It was a cold day. I didn't get to give my letter to Santa Claus. I have one complaint, so maybe next year I'll get that. This is a great example of what I guess you call pop-up markets, small markets, half a day, brings a lot of people downtown with their children and their family. I thought it was fantastic. It was great to see some of the vendors and the retail stores downtown participating in the market as well. I'm just wondering, is this a good example of something we could continue to have throughout the year for other events? I think there should be, or maybe there is. Maybe you've got something in mind, or maybe the town has something in mind. But it worked. It brought people out, and it created some extra commerce downtown for the downtown stores. So that's fantastic. And thank you for doing that, Harley.
And a shout out to Grimsby staff who were incredible in supporting us with the logistics to create that space. We had, some curbers to move. They supplied some parking barriers so we could have a safe space. And I think it demonstrates the value in those public-private partnerships. It's one that's not lost on us, and we hope to roll out a spring and summer program as well. We are now speaking to our stakeholders about a potential flower market and an arts and youth craft event later this year. But again, it's going to come out of those partnerships with Grimsby staff, downtown stakeholders, for us to pull it off, because we're a small shop, Marilyn and I, and we'd love to put this town on our back and carry it with us, but we need a lot of help, and we hope this event will attract more. And I also, my friends on the GDBIA, I look forward to working with them, and I encourage, again, council and staff to be more active in all downtown events because of the importance to the vitality of the commerce, the downtown community overall, and just the fact that we really need to put our arms around what is really the heart and soul of this town in a big way. So thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you very much for your presentation, Harley, and I just want to commend you on the Christmas market and look forward to more events being held on Balsam Lane. Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation? Moved by Councillor Korstanji, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Korstanji, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the delegation from Harley Valentine be received. All in favor? That's carried. There's no regional council update tonight, so can I have a mover and seconder to meet in closed session to discuss the status of 540, 544 North Service Road appeal with legal counsel? Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Davoli. Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Davoli. Resolved that council meet in closed session under Section 2392F of the Municipal Act for discussions subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. All in favor to go into closed? All right, we're moving into closed. All right, we're back in open session now. Welcome back. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the closed session direction to receive item 19.1, staff memorandum? Moved by, why don't I just go with the same people in closed to make it. Moved by Councillor Corstangi, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that the direction provided in closed session regarding the 544 North Service Road appeal status be approved and that staff memorandum on the appeal be received for information. All in favor? That's carried. All right, up next we have Chair's reports. Councillor Frake, go ahead with your chair report for corporate services.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. First of all, I'm locked out of my notebook, so bear with me while I go through. The Corporate Services Committee met on February 10th, and we had a number of items on the agenda. We received the Grimsby Downtown Business Improvement Area minutes, and the Joint Fire Services Advisory Committee minutes. Then we went into discussion reports, of which we had 7. 6 of them were related to the various staff departments and their accomplishments for 2024. So there's a lot of them in here, and I don't want to go through all of them, but I'll touch on some. We did pass one bylaw, which was for the fire route bylaw amendment, which was 8.1. Then we went into the accomplishments, and we started with municipal law enforcement. So Henry was up, and I'll just give you a few items from my notes here. He had a busy year for sure. There was a 45% increase in municipal law enforcement investigations. That was due to the fact that there was more access by citizens on to do their complaints online, so the number went up. They touched on the fact that we changed our dog licensing provider to Doggypet, which works apparently very, very well. I know I use it. The short-term rentals was addressed during the year. The keeping of domestic farm animals was addressed during the year. The bylaw vehicles are going to upgrade their technology so they can do a lot of their work from the cab of the vehicle. Again, I'm just touching on some things here. We went then to the fire department accomplishments, which there were many. They had a number of station tours, residential station tours. They held an annual open house, which went very well. They attended farmers market and do a lot of educational sessions at that market. They do school visits, did a lot of school visits last year, and a number of other outreach programs. Sorry, I'm just gonna, then we moved on to IT. IT had a busy year as well. They did the telephone system replacement back in 2017 and now moving to the next level of telephones, which is a cloud-based telephone system. They were successful in completing the website migration along all the departments. They completed the data center infrastructure upgrades, updated the power supply, which is a key part to keeping things running in the IT department. Again, there's a number of other items, but I do encourage everyone to try and go to the website and go through these accomplishments because they're quite interesting. On the clerk side, they had a busy year as well. They did issued 490 marriage licenses, and compared to 189 the year before. They did 47 civil wedding ceremonies. Anyone here attend any of those? Nick, did you go to one? They did a huge amount of work in records and privacy management. And I'll move to comms. This is the first year for our communications department. So Christina was very busy. She had to hit the ground running. She had a lot on her plate to establish a communications office here in town, trying to rustle everybody up. They were busy with the solar eclipse. That apparently took up a lot of time. The hospital renaming project, a lot of the corporate events and flag raising projects, the website migration, very much involved in that, and very much involved in streamlining our media relations projects and programs. And then there was HR. HR too had a busy year. They embarked on a performance-based culture and talent management program. They did a lot of work on the employee relations and compensation reviews. Pick a few items here. They did some work on the HR innovation and modernization. Apparently we've been issuing some in-house HR speakers corner programs, where employees and staff and senior management get a chance to talk to each other on a more open basis. And recruitment was busy. I won't get into the numbers, but leave it at that. I do encourage you to try and go online and read these. All the departments, the accomplishments are listed here, and it gives you an idea of how busy the town really was last year in so many areas. And I'm sure there's a few under the mist. Next year or this year will be an extremely even busier year. And I thank them all for their work. They did an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Frake. Councillor DeVolle has a question, and Councillor Vardia has.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I'm not so sure if it's necessarily a question to the Chair of Corporate Services, as perhaps just to ask for some awareness on this particular issue. So back throughout the summer and into the early fall, you'll recall the agonizing discussions we had about migrating the financial records over to the Grimsby Downtown Business Improvement Area. And one of the requirements at the end, one of the very last ones, was that there be regular reporting from the DBIA with their financial statements to council. Was, I think, the exact wording of it was to council. Now, the DBIA is a committee that does report to corporate services. And so I guess my question is really just to the committee to ask if you would be so good as to make sure that you actually get those financial statements and that we look at them, because you're sort of the oversight on behalf of council, and to make sure that that is actually coming to us and that someone is actually providing that oversight and that last and final step that we required be done.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you for the question.
I just want to say I attended the meeting, and for those of us on that committee, it was extremely helpful to get such a full briefing of what is going on in town. So for those who missed it, I'm sorry that you did, because I found it very, very useful, very helpful.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. But just a little bit of when Councillor Frake was talking about the clerks and marriages, and I do believe on this past Valentine's Day there were 3 marriages here. 3.
All right, I guess I'm up next with our planning meeting of Wednesday, February 19th, 5 p.m. Really 2 items on the agenda that evening. We had the regional MOU for the transfer of planning responsibilities to the lower area municipalities. That happens March 31st, 2025. There were a number of things the committee noticed, and staff certainly noticed, that there are a number of things that still need to be ironed out before March 31st. With the MOU, it's kind of strange, and I think the whole committee felt the same way. The terms of references were missing in it and weren't involved. I don't know if the region's going to put forward a term of reference, and I guess we'll see by March 31st. And the other thing, our other item was the Balsam Lane Christmas Market, which you saw the presentation this evening. So that's really all we had in our meeting, and we'll move to yeah, Councillor Howe, we don't need to lift that if you just want to ask a question now to me. That's fine.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. On this report, and you touched on this MOU, and it does have weaknesses, whereas many other, or a number of other municipalities have pushed it through, and our staff have noticed where it can certainly be tightened up. But the one that really jumped out at me is the discussion on pre-consultation. And apparently, I'd learned that the province has changed some of theirs. Pre-consultation is the one way that you're going to save everybody a whole lot of money on the back end. Now, maybe on the front end, you got to get some people together, but it's awful to think that they would take pre-consultation away.
I think we could probably spend all night talking about the changes that have gone on over the last really 3 years in planning. I think I'm surprised any of our planners have any hair left. Harold seems to have lost most of his, but
He's not here.
I know, I talked to him today, though, so. Anyway, now that we no longer need that item lifted, how are we going to? Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the previous minutes? Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that the following minutes be approved. Corporate Services Committee, February 10th, 2025. Council, February 10th, 2025. And Planning and Development Committee, February 19th, 2025. All in favor? That's carried. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the board minutes? Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the Grimsby Public Library board minutes of January 15th, 2025 and January 25th, 2025 be received. All in favor? That's carried. Are there any announcements this evening? Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I wanted to start off by talking about a lobster dinner that I attended on Valentine's Day. I asked Chantal to be my Valentine, and she reluctantly agreed. It was held by Canadian Federation of University Women at St. Andrews Hall. It's a really neat organization, local organization, that raises money for scholarships for post-secondary education. It used to be for university scholarships, but it's any form of post-secondary education now. So if a young woman wants to go into the trades, if she wants to go to college, if she wants to go to university, whatever that post-secondary pathway is, this organization provides $1,000 scholarships to students from West Niagara Secondary School and Blessed Trinity Secondary School. So last year they gave 6 $1,000 scholarships to women from these schools. They also gave out 2 $3,000 special bursaries to women in continuing education. So $12,000 all total last year by this one organization went right back into this community, and they did it all by raising money at this lobster dinner, and they had a great silent auction where I won one of the items that I bid on, but they had some really great stuff. I did want to give a shout out to Carolyn Mullins and the whole organization that's involved. Carolyn Mullins is a former councillor who continues to be a leader in our community, and she did an incredible job there, especially with all the snow and all the terrible weather, getting people out and running the event. I also wanted to give a shout out to our heritage staff for all the work they did to prepare for Heritage Week, and to our planning and heritage staff for the article in Municipal World. It's always great when the town of Grimsby gets showcased. In this particular case, it's showcased in a national magazine and website that is focused on municipalities and that is read by municipal employees across the country. It talks about Grimsby. I mean, I don't want to pat ourselves in the back, but it does talk about the town of Grimsby's approach as a whole to heritage, the proactive heritage approach that we've taken since Bill 23 came in, the hiring of additional planning staff, and interns to accelerate designation before the 2027 designation deadline that was placed upon us. The fact that we've completed 44 designations since then, 95% of which have been approved without appeal. All of these things speak to the town of Grimsby and how much we care about heritage and how much we want to preserve the heritage in Grimsby. It talks about the adaptive reuse. It talks about balancing growth and heritage, all the things that have always been important to the town of Grimsby and are part of our strategic plan as a council now, but have been part of the town of Grimsby for decades now. So great job by our staff on getting that, on doing that. Thank you to the writers of the article. One of them is our former planner, Michael Seaman, and another writer. I also wanted to talk about the heritage stuff that's been going on this week. I hope you're following the town of Grimsby social media because there have been a lot of postings about heritage over the last week. Our heritage map went live, and if you haven't had a chance to check out the interactive Google heritage map, it's incredible. You can use it to do walking tours of different parts of Grimsby. If you go on Google Maps and you look up Grimsby Heritage Map, there's also a link to the Town of Grimsby website and from Facebook and Instagram. But it gives an overview over each of the properties. It's a really good kind of overlay for people who want to get to know Grimsby's heritage. I've already gone over my time, but I also wanted to mention that the Grimsby Author Series spring tickets are on sale. Returning to Grimsby is Linwood Barclay in May, who is always entertaining. If you haven't read his novels, I highly recommend them. His new one, I guess, is a twist. I don't think it's been out yet because I haven't been able to find it. But 6 great authors, as usual, coming to the town of Grimsby, full houses at the Grimsby Public Library, and all of that money goes right back into the public library. So I encourage people to go out and buy their tickets as soon as possible because that tends to sell out pretty quickly. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor, thank you. Just a quick mention about a free presentation happening at the Public Library on Thursday, February 27th at 7 p.m. It's a free presentation by the Ontario Green Conservation Association about invasive species. So this presentation will help you to spot invasive plants in your gardens and garden centers and provide you with suggestions about what to plant instead. So you can find that information likely at the the Grimsby Public Library. Thanks. And that was at 7 p.m.
Go ahead, Councillor Korsanji.
Thank you, through Chair. I just want to give a shout out to Grimsby staff and who are the chill chasers from the coldest night of the year, which happened on Saturday night. I had the pleasure of attending as deputy mayor, and it was an amazing event with lots of support. So just want to give a shout out to Team Grimsby.
How much did they raise?
It was over 500, it was over their goal. I think it was around 555 or so. In total, I think the event raised over 9,000. I'm not quite sure, I wasn't there at that point.
Great. I just want to add that coming up this Thursday, February 27th, is the Mayor's Business Breakfast, and that's at Leuna on Hunter Road. And we have a very interesting guest speaker, Prasad Padagenya, who is the Vice President of the Ashai Kasai Battery Separation Company in Port Colborne that's going in. And he's certainly going to speak about the real interesting process of this multi-billion-dollar business. They actually, it's really fascinating. I've seen the presentation, and I look forward to hearing him on Thursday, and that's Thursday, 7 a.m. at Leuna on Hunter Road. Councillor Frake, are there tickets still available, or?
I think we're sold out, but I'm sure that if any of the councillors want to go, we could certainly get them in there.
Yeah,
Because I'd love to see more of our council
fit
there
more
at these things.
counselors in. So really looking forward to that, and that's it if there's no other announcements.
Say when you want to have a mayor's brunch, I might be able to attend.
All right, we move to resolutions. Councillor DeVoley has moved and Councillor Frake seconded the notice of motion on council compensation. It is now on the floor for discussion. Are there any questions from council? Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, if I could speak to it a bit and share with my fellow councillors and the public, just to reiterate, this is a compensation review that would be effective in the next term of council, 2026 to 2030. I do think it would be incorrect to have it apply now. I think we all knew when we ran for council or had some idea of what the compensation would be. And so the idea is not to feather our nest at this point in time. It's certainly to set a level of compensation going forward for anyone who's on the next council. That's the first part I wanted to point out and make very clear to everyone. The question always comes up as to how do you do this in a fair way, in an independent way, in a way that doesn't look like, as I said, we're there feathering our nest, right? And what has been done quite successfully in a few municipalities across the province, too close to us, I believe the city of St. Catharines did something similar, as well as the city of Guelph, where it was an actual independent citizen advisory committee that was formed that worked with, in this case, our CIO and our HR director and ultimately an HR consultant that to actually come up with the recommendations. Now, at the end of the day, the recommendations will still come to council and we'll still have to decide yes, no, or whatever the recommendation is, right? So ultimately, we bear the responsibility at the end, but really looking to have, I'll say, independent parties sit back, look at the work that we do, the number of hours that is involved in this position, and so on, and work through an independent process with recommendations to council. The last time a study like this was done was in 2019, and it came to council in 2020. And at that time, the recommendation that council supported was that this sort of review should be done every 5 years. So we are now at that 5-year mark. And I think the next steps in all of this, as you can see in the notice of motion, is still that staff would come back to council outlining terms of reference for this committee, areas of responsibility and so on and so forth. And so there are, I will say, some baby steps along the way where we'll still have some input and then it would be handed off to this independent committee to come up with recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor DeVoley, second by Councillor Frake. Whereas the town of Grimsby is committed to transparency, accountability, and ensuring fair and appropriate compensation for members of council, and whereas the last compensation review for members of council was completed for 2019 and reported to council on February 3rd, 2020, and whereas regular reviews of council compensation are best practice to ensure alignment with current standards, community expectations, and fiscal responsibility. And whereas the 2020 report recommended that the council approved the recommendation that a compensation review be done at least every 5 years, and whereas engaging community members through a citizen advisory committee provides valuable insights and fosters public trust in the decision-making process, therefore be it resolved that the town of Grimsby initiated a comprehensive review of council compensation for the 2026 to 2030 term of council, including wages and benefits, to assess alignment with comparable municipalities and current government standards. Be it further resolved that a Citizen Advisory Committee be established to oversee the compensation review process comprised of a maximum of 5 members of the public selected through an open application process to ensure technical and diverse representation, and be it further resolved that staff report back to council outlining the Citizens Committee's terms of reference, including scope, objectives, and responsibilities, and work plan for the review process and any financial impacts prior to advertising for the committee members. Be it further resolved that the Citizens Advisory Committee's mandate include A, reviewing and analyzing compensation data, including hours worked and best practices from comparable municipalities, and B, developing recommendations for council compensation adjustments, if any, that reflect fairness, fiscal responsibility, and alignment with municipal governance trends, and be it further resolved that the Chief Administration Officer or delegate be directed to provide guidance, oversight, and technical support to the Citizens Advisory Committee, including the preparation of applicable background information, and be it further resolved that staff report back on the Citizen Advisory Committee's findings and recommendations to council no later than December 1st, 2025 for consideration and implementation for the 2026 to 2030 term of council. Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan, through you. Just a kind of a point of clarification. If I wanted to propose that we first look at restructuring council composition before reviewing the council composition or compensation, sorry, as if we restructured the composition of council, it obviously would trigger a compensation review as well. So would that be an emotion to go that we'd have to vote on before, or would have to move for a deferral motion to suggest that we first look at reviewing council composition as a whole? And just the reason why, I just don't think I can support increasing councillor pay. I didn't come up here and I didn't run for council for the salary. And I think we're in line with municipalities in our immediate vicinity. And for part-time counselor. But that being said, if we were to switch to some different, I'll say, composition of council, ward structure, or whether it be adding a deputy mayor or to move for more of a full-time mayor or deputy mayor, I'd be kind of willing to consider those kinds of things. But to just strictly consider council remuneration and an increase in pay is not something I want to entertain. But however, if we were to restructure completely, I would be inclusive of that.
Yeah, so I think what we have on the floor now is a deferral motion. So I'll read the motion you have. We do need a seconder to vote on it. Resolved that the notice of motion regarding councillor member compensation be deferred and staff report back with options of restructuring council composition in addition to reporting back on options for reviewing council remuneration. Is there a seconder? Councillor Frake. All right. If it's about the deferral, you can speak on it, Councillor.
I think I just wanted to clarify so that hopefully everyone understands that the notice of motion is not about an increase. It is just about a study. And I would hate to see people automatically jump to that conclusion. We're first aggregating the data before we know which fork in the road we go down. And it could be that we aggregate the data and find that no adjustment is required. But we don't know until we have data.
All right, that clarifies that, and we can vote on eScribe. Go ahead. Yeah, for the deferral. Councillor Frake, is it a clarification?
Not really. I can understand where Councillor Barazzi is coming from and Councillor DeVoli. They both are related somehow or other, and I guess it's chicken or the egg kind of situation. we did have a
No,
review.
I think just for a point of clarification, I think they're totally separate. And if we do decide to change council composition, we have to be aware that we just did a ward boundary review fairly recently, and that cost almost $45,000. So that's something that would probably need to be done if council decides to change the composition before the next election. And I think the composition review would most likely have to be done separately because we do have an election coming up in 2026, so it would have to be done over a year before the election, so.
So, sorry, I'm not finished. Can I?
All right.
So we did this study back in the last term, and nothing much has really changed in Grimsby in terms of geography or population. Can I get into that conversation now or not?
No,
Okay,
because
all
you
right.
can only
Okay.
speak to the deferral right now. Okay, Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, it's a point, I don't know if it's a point of order or maybe a point of clarification for our clerk. Wouldn't it be a brand new motion? Like, this is kind of a way of sneaking in a motion that is different from what, if you're not in favor of this, vote against it and bring your motion forward as a notice of motion. But it seems like a way of, and I'm not saying whether I'm for it or against it, I just don't think it follows the procedure, the council procedures. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear our clerk clarify, but it seems to be a way of getting a new motion on the floor through deferral.
Yeah, I certainly concur with that type of thinking, and I think if the majority of council feels that way, the easiest way to move it forward and get it off the table is just voting against this, so the deferral. All right, so e-scribe voting.
Point of clarification, where are we? Okay, it doesn't say deferral, though, when it comes up. It says just Councillor.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Okay, all right.
All right, that's defeated. All right, so we're back to the original motion. I'm not going to read it again, but we'll vote on e-scribe again, so. And that's carried. Up next, Councillor Howe has moved and Councillor DeVoley seconded the notice of motion on council expense policy. It's now on the floor for discussion. I'll read it after discussion. Councillor Howe.
Through you, Mayor, and you'll notice that there's a whole lot less whereases in it. Anyways, it is something that hasn't been looked at for 5 years, so that 2020, when it was last done, best practices would indicate that we should be doing it on a regular basis. And to show that being fiscally responsible, we've got to look at ourselves as well as everything external to us. So that's it.
All right, moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Davoli, whereas the council expense policy serves as a key framework for the reimbursement of expenses incurred by elected officials in the fulfillment of their duties, and whereas the current council expense policy was last reviewed in October 2020, and it is best practice to review policies and procedures regularly. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to conduct a review of the council expense policy A09-GOV-130 and report back directly to council with suggested updates by April 2025. Why don't we vote e-scribe on this? And that's carried. Up next, Councillor Davoli has moved and Councillor Frick seconded the notice of motion on prioritizing Canadian goods. It is now on the floor for discussion and any questions from council. Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Well, I definitely support the buy local movement. I just have questions for if we were to actually change procurement bylaw to buy Canadian, would that impede on international free trade laws? Or are we, I don't know if who wants to answer the question, maybe the CAO, or are we even capable of adding that kind of sentiment in, or would that?
Well, we have Tony online. So Tony, if you heard that question, go ahead if you have an answer.
Yeah, we are looking to get a legal opinion on that, and we'll bring that back with the bylaw update, those findings.
Great, thank you. Any further questions from council? Seeing none, moved by Councillor Davoli, second by Councillor Frick, where it is the town's best interest to adopt a procurement approach that prioritizes Canada-made products and supplies, whereas finance staff are currently undertaking a review of the procurement bylaw. Therefore, be it resolved that staff include options of prioritizing Canadian goods while complying with applicable trade agreements and legislation within the upcoming revised procurement bylaw. E-scribe vote, please. And that's carried unanimously. Up next, can I have a mover and seconder for the Amyloidosis Awareness Month proclamation? Moved by Councillor Frick, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Frick, second by Councillor Howe. Whereas March is Amyloidosis Awareness Month, a month dedicated to raising awareness, funding research, and supporting those living with amyloidosis and their loved ones. And whereas amyloidosis is a group of diseases that occurs when abnormal protein known as amyloid builds up in the tissues and organs of the body. Left untreated, the disease can result in organ failure and can be fatal. And where amyloidosis can mimic the signs and symptoms of more common medical conditions, and the disease can be challenging to diagnose, whereas amyloidosis often affects people who are older or middle-aged. However, younger people have been diagnosed with the disease. And whereas early diagnosis can lead to better outcomes for both patients and their families, and whereas raising awareness about all the amyloidosis diseases, including hereditary and non-hereditary forms of the disease, contribute to the building of healthier communities across Canada. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Jeff Jordan, declare March 2025 as Amyloidosis Awareness Month in the town of Grimsby. All in favor? That's carried. Can I have a mover and seconder for the bylaws, please? Councillor DeFlavio, Councillor Corstangi. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Corstangi. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 25-12 and that same be read a first time, considered, and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Next council meeting is scheduled for March 17th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Can I have a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw? Moved by Councillor DeVoldy, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor DeVoldy, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 25-13 and that same be read a first time, considered, and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone. Have a good evening.